Welcome back. It's time for the verse of the day. Change is scary, good change and bad change. Whatever circumstances you find yourself in, recall Deuteronomy 31:8. The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. So embrace your change and keep holding on to God. I'm Janae Graves. This is the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and that was your verse of the day.
Thank you, Janae. Thank you for reading that for us. Guys, if you didn't know, I am a pastor of a church. I pastor Cornerstone Community Church in Millville, New Jersey. I'm a born-again believer. Jesus Christ is my personal Savior. I cannot be swayed. I cannot be moved. I don't, he's done too much for me, and I will stand and proclaim it from the mountaintop. So this is a radio show that is hosted by a believer, bunch of believers in the room.
Amen.
We love the Lord, and he's just been too good to us. So if you don't know Christ as your personal Savior, why don't you take the time, just accept him as your personal Savior. Don't worry about growing. You will grow. It's called sanctification process. You find a nice Bible preaching, Bible believing church. Don't look for it to be perfect. Don't worry about getting yourself together. I got to get myself together before I go to church. That's as ridiculous as saying that I have to get well before I go to urgent care. That is ridiculous. So make sure that you come to Christ just as you are and allow him to love you and accept him as your personal Savior and grow in Christ together. In-house, I already introduced Jamie Jackson. She is from Kotler, Hernandez, and Cohen, and we are excited to have her in the place today. She is an attorney with Kotler, Hernandez, and Cohen. And Jamie, tell them about what kind of law you practice and what you do and what we can offer to some of our listeners here today.
We are a full-service law firm. We specialize in handling personal injury cases. If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, a slip and fall, if a loved one in a nursing home or hospital has been injured, you can give us a call. If you've been injured on your job, we do workers' compensation law. We also we do real estate law, wills and trusts, whatever you need. We're full service.
You do wills and trusts?
Yes, we do.
You know, and if you're listening, you should have a will.
I want a will.
Yeah.
You definitely should, because I know today's topic is change. That's one of the biggest and most sudden changes that can happen.
Yeah.
Is, the death of a spouse, a loved one, a child, God forbid. And, you need to be prepared because you're not expecting that when it happens. And so then trying to deal with all the aftermath of that can be quite challenging. Yeah. Prepare ahead of time before the change happens.
Yeah. And people say, I don't have to have a will, I ain't got nothing to leave. I guess it's not about leaving anything. I mean, leave instructions on how you want your funeral to be done at the minimum. I mean, I don't know, but
or medical directives as well. It doesn't have to just be the death of a loved one. We get injured. Nobody plans to get hurt.
Right.
Nobody plans to get sick.
Yeah.
Nobody plans to be hospitalized. But these things happen unexpectedly.
Right.
And then your loved ones, if you're not in a position to tell them how you want things handled or what things you want to happen to you, they're stuck with making these tough decisions on your behalf without knowing what you want. Yeah. You can do a medical directive and tell everybody what life-saving measures you want. If you want them to do everything they can for as long as they can, make sure you spell it out, because they might just, make a different decision for you.
You might have a family member that don't like you and make a different decision for you. So I like that. So the doctors have to follow that medical directive?
If you have a medical directive, it tells everybody exactly what it is you want. I don't want any blood transfusions, or I do, or I don't want a feeding tube ever put in, or I do. I do want to be revived. If I go out, don't bother bringing me back. If I can't breathe on my own, I don't want to be kept alive. You can make those decisions now while you're clear-headed, while you're in your, you haven't been hurt, there's no pressure, and then those directives will be followed. Mm-hmm. And it helps your loved ones a lot, because nobody wants to make that decision for a loved one. That's a hard decision to make, to decide whether or not to, keep going with the extra measures to try to keep someone alive.
Yeah. So these are all the services that Kotler Hernandez and Co. How long have you been with them?
I started with them February 16th, 2017.
Wow.
I've been practicing for a really long time. I graduated law school in 2002. And I will tell you, practicing at Kotler, Hernandez and Cohen has been the happiest I've ever been in my legal career. I mean, just great people over there, and I really appreciate what I'm allowed to do, which is help all of you. Anybody that's been injured, I can help, and that's what I've always wanted to do.
You guys seem to have a great team. I had the pleasure of meeting them, and it's a great team over there. Yeah, some folks check in on Facebook Live. Erica Bogan said she never thought about a will that way. And I think that's something that a lot of us, like I said, we don't think of a will in that way. We always think it's like it's just something to leave, and not really helping our family with directives or anything.
Absolutely. The other thing I'll say that we don't think about that we should when it comes to change is insurance. A lot of times as an attorney, one of the first questions I get asked when someone's been injured, like say you have a car accident and you file a claim, it's what is my claim worth? And if you've been injured, a lot of times your claim is only worth the amount of the insurance policy, because the average person doesn't walk around with a lot of excess cash or assets that can be used to pay if they're found liable for negligence or injuring someone. But we all have car insurance. We have homeowners insurance. If something happens at your house, your homeowner's insurance, would pay if someone is injured. But the cost is limited by whatever that policy limit is. So most of us who get injured in a car accident, if the person who's at fault has minimum policies, then that's what your claim is worth. You could have $1 million worth of injuries, but if they only have $25,000 worth of coverage, your case isn't worth more than $25,000. Wow. So I tell everybody, especially when it comes to your motor vehicle insurance, make sure that you have enough coverage for yourself, because there is uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage that you can have on your own policy that protects you in case the idiot that slammed into the back of you has no coverage at all or minimum coverage, and you end up needing $250,000 worth of medical care, you're covered. So that's a protection for yourself. Insurance, yes, we think about it like, okay, well, it's an expense, so I'm just going to do the minimum. You're doing yourself a disservice if you only carry the minimum in coverage.
Wow. So I hope you got that. That's a lot.
That's my tip for today. Save yourself. Don't count on somebody else.
Listen, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? I know Janae has some questions over there. What we got going on, Bert?
Okay, yeah. So we know that you also do like workman's comp lawyer stuff as well. So some of the more common questions was what is all of that going to cost?
Oh, yes. So when my clients come in, one of the first things they want to know is, what is this going to cost me? Well, at Kotler, Hernandez and Cohen, we always give a free consultation. You never pay anything up front. But in general, most personal injury actions and most workers' compensation claims, I know for us, every single one is handled on a contingency basis. But I will say, across the board, a lot of those type of claims are handled on a contingency basis, which means you don't pay anything up front. And that attorney only recovers if they recover for you. So if you've been injured in a car accident or a slip and fall, or you've been injured on your job and you go to an attorney and they tell you to pay them up front, run. Because most of them will say, we're not gonna get paid unless you get paid. So that's what it means when there's a contingency. It means there is going to be a payment, but it's going to be at the end of the case, and it's going to be out of what they recover for you, not out of your pocket directly.
Wow. Okay.
That's very important.
And let's talk about slip and falls, right? Remember when I was coming up, people would slip at one of the stores and think they could sue the store. Like how? I mean, is that even real?
there is negligence involved, then yes, absolutely. Like, for example, if you go to a store, you're considered an invitee.
Right.
They want you to come in. They want your business. They want you to visit their facility. So they have an obligation to you to make sure that it's safe.
Right.
So if you go to that store and, for example, there's a huge puddle of water in the middle of the floor, and it's been there, and you slip, you can't see it. There are no cones warning you not to step right here. There's water or there's oil or something, and then you get injured. Then yes, because they invited you there, and then there was a hazard that they negligently did not prepare you for by warning you, giving you at least a warning, some signage. They could be responsible.
But don't you have a responsibility to walk around the oil yourself? Or walk
some
around the water?
floors you
I've
can't-
got to walk, you know what I'm
The
saying?
floors, sometimes you can't see the liquid on them.
I don't even know if I could stand before somebody and say, I just fell in some water. Like, I don't know if I guess that's my pride. Like, I would even ask myself, fool, you didn't see the water? You ain't walk around?
It's very easy not to see sometimes.
You're like in a rush.
Or the floors are often
alright.
shiny.
Yeah.
You know, they have a clear coat, some of them, you know, to make them shiny and new, and they look good. So you may not see that.
But I'm telling you, if I do fall,
If
I'm
you
calling
fall,
Kotler, Hernandez, and Cohen, and I want Jamie Jackson.
That's right.
That's who I
I'm not
want.
saying that every
'Cause we gonna
accident
eat.
is the result of someone's negligence.
Right.
But if you have been injured as the result of someone's negligence,
Yes.
then yes, you shouldn't have to pay out of your pocket for your
Very
medical
good.
expenses. You should be able to get better without the concern of, oh my goodness, this is going to bankrupt me.
Yeah. See, this is the kind of programming we want to bring to our heroes, the listener. Listener, you are the heroes. We want to bring this kind of stuff to you just so that you might know you do have some rights, whether it be workman's comp, whether it's slip and fall, whether there's accidents. And Jamie's going to be with us. You'll be with us a lot.
I'd be happy to come back anytime.
Our producer Dan, what do you have to say, Dan? Yeah, that's a great. Yeah. I remember McDonald's got sued for that.
Everybody remembers that McDonald's lawsuit for the hot coffee.
Yeah.
You know,
Great question, Dan.
a lot of it is within the discretion of the judge and the jury. Exactly. Nobody wants to file a frivolous claim, and we're not talking about, oh my goodness, you have a paper cut, from the
Right.
the sandwich container, and now
Yeah.
you're going to run in and sue, and you're going to get all this money, and this is going to be some type of lottery ticket. That's not what we're
And you
encouraging.
guys don't even take cases
at all.
like that.
No,
Yeah, you guys don't take cases like that.
no. We do not want to file any frivolous lawsuits. We don't want to clog up the court system. But if you have been legitimately hurt and you legitimately feel that it is because of the negligence of someone else, you need to talk to an attorney to see if there is a case there. We can investigate it. We can figure out whether or not there is an argument to be made. But then ultimately it's going to be up to a judge or a jury to determine whether or not that's going to be a successful claim. But trust me, we do not want to invest all of our, again, we do everything up front. So we're fronting the cost of that. We're fronting the time investment of that.
Yeah.
We don't want to invest time and money in a frivolous claim.
Wow.
I have another follow-up question. So while someone is trying to figure out if they do have a claim, what happens with their job? Like, could they get fired for filing a claim against their employer?
Okay, this is a question I kind of get a lot when it comes to workers' compensation. You get hurt on your job, and you're hurt in New Jersey. Every state is different, but in New Jersey, where I practice, if you're hurt on your job, there are 3 benefits that you're typically entitled to.
Write these down, listeners. 3
One
benefits.
is medical benefits. You're entitled to medical benefits, medical treatment, which would include any prescriptions, any physical therapy, any assistive devices you may need as a result of your injuries, and that should be free of charge to you. That's the first benefit you're entitled to. You're also entitled to wage replacement benefits if you're unable to work during that period of time that you're receiving the medical treatment. That's typically paid at 70% of your average weekly wage. The third benefit you're entitled to in New Jersey is permanency benefits. If at the conclusion of your medical treatment, you are not back to your pre-injury state, which is to say you have some type of functional loss or permanent impairment as a result of the injuries you sustained on your job, then you're entitled to permanency. And there's a schedule of disabilities that would tell you what the amount of your permanency award would be. Many people are scared to file those claims because they think they're going to lose their job if they file for those three benefits that the law entitles them to.
Right.
But the statute specifically states that you are not to be retaliated against by your employer for exercising your right to file a claim. So it specifically says that. So you shouldn't be scared. And your employer is supposed to have workers' compensation insurance to cover all three of those benefits as a part of doing business. If they do not, they are subject to fines and penalties from the state of New Jersey. So most employers know that this is the cost of doing business. They want to protect their workers from injury, and they want them, if they're injured, to go ahead and get the medical treatment they need so they can get back on the job and continue doing good work for them.
Now, does Philadelphia have some of the same? Because we have listeners in Philadelphia, Delaware, Maryland, all over the place.
Absolutely, absolutely. Philadelphia has similar benefits. It's a different process, but yes, and the same thing applies. You're not supposed to be retaliated against for simply filing that claim. Now, the caveat I will put out there is that although you're not allowed to be fired for filing a workers' compensation claim, if there is another legitimate reason to fire you,
That's right.
you can be terminated. So I know sometimes people get that a little confused. They think just because they filed a workers' compensation claim that, you know, they have sort of like a free pass
to do whatever
forever.
Yeah.
But no, you still have to be a good employee. If you're a bad employee, you will get terminated.
This is great stuff. Great stuff. And listeners, if you have a call, if you have a question, 888-329-3306. I want to go through this real quick because the show is winding down. We talked about the emotional cycle of change. We talked about uninformed optimism, informed pessimism, valley of despair, where most people quit. Then right after that comes informed optimism. If you hang in there while you're in that valley of despair, in other words, that's that light at the end of the tunnel. And then right after that, if you push your way through, you'll experience something that we call success and fulfillment. Now, each time you go through this cycle, it should get easier and easier. Uninformed optimism, informed pessimism, valley of despair, informed optimism, success and fulfillment. Understand this. To get where you want to go, you're going to have to make some changes in your life to be who you are called to be, destined to be, purpose to be. I talk to a lot of people about purpose in their lives, and I just want to find my purpose. Well, it starts by making some changes in your own life first. And so you're going to have to push through these different emotional cycle of changes today. Jamie, real quick, I've been asking everybody, how do you deal with change?
Well, you know, I get excited by change. You know, to me, a fresh start is always great, but it can be scary. For me, I just like to face it head on, just one step at a time, and then you get to the other side. Yeah. I mean, that's what happens. That's what happens. We're going to face it, and we're going to have change in this life. Listen, I hope that this show, I hope that it's really been great for some of you and productive, and I hope you guys have learned something from Dr. Rock and from our attorney, Jamie Jackson.